Today we're going to be ranking condos in Naples, Florida, best to worst. I am naming names. I'm going to give you, towards the end of the video, I'm going to give you my top 2 or 3 picks for a condo in a reasonable price range in Naples, Florida, and I'm going to tell you what I think would be your potentially worst picks. So we are going to be going through the best to the worst today. Now you might say, why are you even talking about condos? Everybody knows that condos are a terrible buy in Florida right now. Listen, I don't disagree with you. However, there are a lot of people that are still very, very interested in condos. Why? Because the lock and leave scenario is very appealing to a lot of people. They like the fact that if weather comes through, they don't have to worry about the replacement of the roof or the damage that was done to the exterior of the building or the landscape or the trees that were pulled down in the storm. They don't have to worry about pool repairs. None of that. The condo association is on the hook for all of that. And listen, I get it. I understand. If you watch my channel, you are 100% educated on how expensive the insurance has become for these condo associations. That has been passed on to the owners, and that has caused the enormous increase in condo fees. Not everywhere. Not everywhere. And I think we have to remember that. Not everybody was asleep at the wheel in terms of managing the money that was coming in for these condo associations. Some of them were in a 10 or a 20 or sometimes even more % surplus. So if they were managed well, they hung on and they did well. So I want everybody to keep that in mind. Yes, it is a lot, but it's not everybody. And in this video, we are not going to be talking about beachfront condos. We're not talking about the folks that have an unlimited budget and they can spend 7 figures on a condo and they're completely not worried about it. That's not what we're ranking today. Today's Naples, Florida best to worst on the condos is going to be the folks that are a little bit off the coast in Naples. Many of you will reach out to me. If you didn't know this, I am a real estate agent. Sometimes people will call me and they'll say, are you actually a real estate agent or do you just do YouTube? No, I've been a real estate agent for 27 years. So I would love, my team and I would love to help you on your purchase or your sale. So I get these calls all the time to do consultations, and there are many, many people that are still very interested in condos. So as of this morning, in the Naples metropolitan area, so Collier County, there was over 400 condos on the market. So do you think you might be able to find a motivated seller and a good buy? 400 condos on the market? I think that you probably could. All right, so if you're unfamiliar with Naples, the way that we look at it is you have South Naples, East Naples, North Naples, downtown Naples, and central Naples. That's the way that I kind of break it up, and I think that's the easiest way to look at it. In my opinion, all things considered, and we're going to talk about these things, in my opinion, the best location is going to be North Naples. So that's going to be, if you're even vaguely familiar, most people know where the beaches are. So if you think about Vanderbilt Beach, in and around Vanderbilt Beach, so North Naples. North Naples is going to be closest to Bonita Springs. So that's the quadrant that I'm talking about. Why do I think that's the best location? Because it's one, closer to the airport. You can get to airport to RSW, Southwest International in Fort Myers. They have these new roads that go back that direction. You can get there from North Naples in about 20 minutes usually. So really easy distance from the main airport. But the other thing is, back in the day, many, many, many years ago, it used to be that downtown Naples was just everything. Everybody wanted to be around downtown Naples, and if you weren't in that area, then, you know, you were sort of the haves and the have-nots. North Naples, because of that, became a little bit more affordable, and also newer, because you can only build so much in an area. Downtown Naples is very expensive because it's right there by 5th Avenue South, 3rd Street South, the beaches, the piers, all of those things are right there. So as it moved outward, North Naples started to build up as newer restaurants, newer shopping, newer condos. So I mentioned Vanderbilt Beach, that's a beautiful beach. You have Wiggins Pass, which is the state park, that is beautiful. You don't have condos all over the place, that's a beautiful natural beach. Plus, if you want to kind of go just a little bit north, then you're in Bonita Springs and you have Barefoot Beach and Bonita Beach. So I think that North Naples is a great location because it's just a little bit newer than some of the original area, and things were built a little bit better. Number 2 on my best choice for a condo is 2 bedrooms and a den, 2 baths, 1 car garage. That is your best case scenario on a condo. 2 plus a den, 2 car garage, and a 1 car garage. If you can get a 2 car garage, great, but that's gonna be your best scenario. So why do I say that? 2 bedrooms tends to be the little shotgun, which people don't love. It feels very much like an apartment. 2 bedrooms and a den will usually give you that kick out, a little depth, and it just gives you a little bit more living so that you can have a bedroom, and then you can have a guest bedroom, and you can have an office or an area that you can do hobbies, or just an area to where you have a little bit of separation to have 2 TVs. So what I think is a lot of people make the mistake of thinking that it's just themselves. Maybe it's a couple, maybe, you know, you're Marge and Ed and you're moving from Michigan and you think that a 2 bedroom is perfectly fine. Usually it's not. If you can do 2 bedrooms and a den, it's much better. And there's nothing to say that den can't be an extra guest bedroom. It absolutely can. Some people use the Murphy bed scenario. I hate that. I don't like it at all. It just never works out the way that you think that it will. You're better off to do even a pull-out couch with a better mattress. That works a lot better, because what you'll find is when you put that Murphy bed situation in there, you don't use the desk. It's too small. When you pull the bed down, the mattress is junk, and the mattress can really be junk with a pull-out couch as well. So make sure you're looking at that, unless you're putting kids on it. Kids don't care. But the Murphy bed, usually not the greatest choice. It takes up an entire wall. Anyway, that's a whole nother video on that. But it just gives you, if you have the den, it gives you better space. What it doesn't give you usually is a closet. So you have to have a window and a closet to call it a bedroom. So usually you're lacking that, but it does give you better space. And then as far as a garage goes, you want that garage because if you're going to rent your unit, or even if you're just going to use it a few months out of the year, you want to be able to put your personal things somewhere. So it's just nice to have that extra storage space, especially if you utilize it as sort of a lockout for the renters. So in other words, let's say you use it January, February, March, and then the rest of the year you're going to try to rent, then you're going to take everything out of your dresser drawers in your closet, you're going to put it in your garage, and you're going to lock that off to the renter, because the renter doesn't need a garage for a short-term scenario. The other thing that's nice about it is that you can put bikes in there, you can put your pool stuff in there. It's just good to have that storage. On the fees, you want to, if you're average Joe buyer and you just want something nice, you want a beautiful resort style pool, you want walking trails, you want pickleball, tennis, those are the important things. If you get those things, and when I say nice resort style pool, I am not talking about the postage stamp. That is problematic. Nobody wants that. So target under $700 a month in condo fees. Now you might be saying,
are you out of your mind? I was thinking $250.
If your condo fees are too low, and you're not going to see them for $250, but let's say you see them for $350, chances are you're going to get hit with special assessments if a storm comes through, because it isn't enough. When insurance went up, it wasn't enough. So you don't want it to be too low, but you don't want it to be too high. So somewhere between 500 and 700 is average to get the nice amenities, usually not a golf course. You might get a public course, but not bundled golf and definitely not private golf, but you definitely want the amenities. It will limit your exit strategies immensely if you do that. You're going to want to look for impact resistant doors and windows, and if that's not there, at a minimum you're going to want to see double hung windows. You don't want that real thin single pane glass if you can avoid it. And then it's also really good idea to have storm protection. Electric storm protection is nice to have. You just kind of push the button and the shutters come down. And then lastly, you want to comb through the budget, the financials, and make sure that there is a significant surplus in the reserves. You really need to see that, and you need to make sure you have all the paperwork and that your agent is covering it with you. You need a good agent. I'm not going to go into all the details of what you should look for in the reserves and a surplus, because for some people that gets over their head and they don't want to do that. They don't want to have an accounting degree to figure that out. But it's, if you have a good agent, they're going to know. They'll look at it and say, this dog is not going to fight. All right, so that would be the best of the best in terms of what you're looking for. Now remember, towards the end here, I'm going to give you my top choices, but let's move on to the worst. For me, the worst location is South Naples. It's just too far. It never got off the ground. They're always trying to, that's always considered kind of a district that they're trying to reinvigorate. They call it the art district. It really kind of isn't. There isn't a lot there at all. And like I said, it's really far from the airport. Now, if you're lucky enough to be able to fly into Naples, which Naples, they limit the size of the plane that can fly in. So it's really rare that you can fly directly into Naples. Usually people are flying into RSW, which is the Fort Myers one. Sometimes people will fly into Miami, Fort Lauderdale, but it's there, you're so kind of off the beaten path a little bit, and it's also not particularly close to any beach or any amenities. Like I said, they're always trying to get it going. WinStar is a community that was put in several years ago. Some people love it. I've had a lot of people that move there and they just really don't like it because when they get outside of their community, there's not much there at all. So South Naples would be my last choice for a condo. And then I also would say East Naples. Now there are some parts of East Naples that do have nice condos, like Treviso Bay. They have nice amenities. They're nice condos there as well. But those are golfing condos. They're the same thing over and over and over and over. Not every building gives you access to the golfing. The fees are very high. I'm not a super fan of Treviso Bay. And then in East Naples, you also have a lot of the older condos. So there are a lot of older condos that have low ceilings, popcorn ceilings, ceiling fans that hang from a chain. A lot of people like to buy things that are turnkey furnished, where you get all the furnishings, you get the televisions, you basically get everything. A lot of that furniture is original, and we're talking about beat up, broken down wicker. Do you really want to sleep in a wicker bed? Because I know that I do not. So that's what you tend to get in those areas. Is it more affordable? Yes. But one of my tips is always do not buy a price point, because you get those problems in the price point. It's always people that say, well, I don't want to spend more than $325,000, but I want a huge resort style pool. I want a pickleball community. I want a restaurant in the community. I want an updated condo that's only 10 years old, and I want the condo fees to be $300 a month. It's just sometimes people say things that are, but that's what I want. Well, you never want to buy a condo that has what I'm going to call functional obsolescence, okay? Things that are outdated. They just don't work anymore. Things like the laundry being community laundry. Like I mentioned, the lower popcorn ceilings, the small pool that you can't do anything about. It's there. They're generally not going to re-dig a pool. I don't know if I know any community that's ever redug a pool. And eventually, when you're aged out, if you want to continue to be relevant, you know, people bring up like the glades, and that's, we're going to be talking about that here at the end. Your likelihood for a special assessment that's really high, that you're not prepared for in the community, it is very high because everything's older. The buildings might be frame, the roof might be asphalt shingle. There are so many things that could create that special assessment. All right, so let's jump to my picks and my solution. Let's just start with the worst since we're here and I just talked about it. I personally don't like the glades at all. To me, it's a very old style, dated community with this golf course, and the units, the condos, in my opinion, they're kind of like the reigning champ of functional obsolescence, and they have had structure problems. So about, I don't know, 6-7 years ago, maybe a little bit more than that, the upper units, the lanais that were concrete on the bottom here, they were falling in. So literally there were people that were sitting on their lanai and the lanai above them was falling in. So the glades is one that I don't like at all. And then I'll also say that almost, not every, but all, like I like Glen Eagle, but almost every community, condo community up and down Davis Boulevard, for me is an absolute no-go. Like Winter Haven, yes, it has a nice pool, but that's about it. Again, the condos being really old, and then some people, because they didn't have enough space and they didn't listen to my top list here, 2 bedrooms and a den, a lot of those are 2 bedrooms, 2 baths. No covered parking, no garage, so they need the space. So what did they do? They enclose their lanai. Well, when you enclose your lanai, you almost sometimes create like the reptile house at the zoo. It's so hot, it's so sunny, and you can't get outside at all. So another mistake that people make with those condos. So up and down Davis Boulevard for me is a no-go. All right, let's talk about some nice ones in North Naples. All right, number 1, I like Heritage Green. That's off Immokalee. Now, we all know Immokalee has terrible traffic, but I really like that community. They have nice amenities in the community. So you walk right into your front door, 2 bedrooms and a den, 2 baths, and a garage. Most of them have golf course views. There is a golf course in the community. Like I said, they have pretty nice amenities. The location, if you can fight the traffic, the location is really good. And the fees are about $5,500 for the year. So that would be one pick. The second one I like is Calusa Bay. They have a nice pool complex. Their landscaping is pretty. The units are big enough that they work for most people. Now the fees are a little bit higher. The fees run around $8,800, $8,900 for the year, so a little bit higher, but you get a little bit more in terms of amenities. And by the way, the pricing on the 2 that I just mentioned you can buy in there for anywhere from $330,000 to $450,000 very easily. All right, and if you made it this long, I promised you that I was going to give you a better alternative. So what I would say is focus on a villa. If you don't want to deal with a condo, focus on a villa. So that's going to be, although Heritage Green, that's going to be as close to a villa as you're going to get. So that's going to be 1 level and you're attached. So you might just be attached on one side with a concrete wall, but places like Island Walk, Verona Walk, Village Walk, They have wonderful amenities for these villas. You can't buy in the 3s, but you can buy in the 5s. Some of the villas even have their own little private pool if you wanted it. And I would say, as it relates to having some privacy, they are really, to me, one of the best, because most of these villas back to a lake. So there's a whole little canal system. I don't mean out to open water. It's just in and around the community. It's just pretty. Miles and miles of walking trails, lots of amenities. I'm talking about restaurants, more than one. They also have a full-time activities director whose sole purpose is to create fun things for you to do and meet other people. So to me, and those generally run around $500 a month, because there isn't a golf course in that community, but there's everything else you could think of. So they're villa style homes with nobody above you. They do have some that are more like a townhome, but still nobody is above you. And then you can have a courtyard pool if you want that. All of them have 2-car garages. So to me, that's a pretty good buy as well. And if you're moving from a single family home and you thought you had to do a condo, a villa is probably a really good idea for you to take a look at. So if I can ever be of help, all my contact information is always below.